Hey everyone, Lord Rho here. Oh, an interesting one we have today. Malcador the Perpetual. Now, this is a follow-on from my previous upload, Horus Confronts Malcador, so be sure to go check that one out first if you haven't seen that one already. And as usual, spoiler warning to begin with, today we are covering events from the Horus Heresy short story, The Last Council. So if you aren't aware of events from this ebook, then go check it out first. Come back to the video after. As always, I really recommend you read the story for yourself first, as it's the best way you get the most enjoyment out of the lore. And also, we keep supporting Games Workshop and the amazing Black Library, who without them, we wouldn't have this fantastic lore that we all love sharing and discussing. So let's keep supporting them. And with that said, let's just jump straight in. So, these events are set just before the Siege of Terra, in the days and weeks leading up to that great battle, and Malcador and the Council of Terra have just had their final meeting, whereupon they have agreed to try and bring in as many of the civilian refugees behind the walls of the palace as they can. Then all leadership of Terra has been handed over to the three loyal Primarchs who are on Terra to defend it, namely Rogal Dorn, Sanguinius and Jagatai Khan. Until that impending battle is over, and once the traitors are defeated, the council can reconvene and establish protocols like normal. Malcador, however, does not seem to think that he will be part of it. The good work we have done here over the years, my friends, in this very room, has become the foundation of the new Imperium. An Imperium that belongs not to us, but to the generations that will follow, unto mankind's glorious and inevitable destiny among the stars. The price of that destiny seems that we must allow the Emperor's loyal sons to cast out the disloyal one last time. Until that is done, we should let Lords Dorn, Sanguinius and Jagatai Khan lead. Just as the Imperial Palace has been fortified for war, so too must our stewardship of Terra. Several of the High Lords drummed their knuckles on the tabletop in agreement. Malcador nodded. And when Horus's rebellion is ended, it will fall to those who remain to reconvene this council in the Emperor's name. And you, Lord Sigillite, Lady Ursula replied, you and he together will guide us, as ever you have. Malcador noted the golden Aquila trinket that she clasped, almost out of sight. He knew that she was not alone in her secretive faith. The Sigillite smiled, though he believed it could not possibly seem sincere. We shall see, my lady. We shall see. So, as I said, Malcador definitely has some misgivings about the siege to come, that much is clear. Perhaps he is expecting the Emperor alone can defeat Horus, and thus he knows the Emperor must leave the Golden Throne. With Magnus gone, there is no other Psyker that could take the Emperor's place, save Malcador, and he knows it's a sacrifice he wouldn't return from. Or is he not expecting the Emperor to survive the incoming battle? I doubt that one. I doubt Malcador would doubt the Emperor, so I think he's more reflecting on himself here. It was almost a week before the relocation began in earnest. Har-Rantal, to his credit, devoted far more of his own time and energy to it than anyone had truly anticipated, and Malcador saw him often among the refugees on the avenue of the Imperial Awakening, without his armour, the crested helm of his office, or his ceremonial maul. The Grand Provost Marshal appeared far less unapproachable. He would take the time to speak with the people he was assisting, hearing their tales of fear and sorrow, and making sure they had fresh water and blankets before they were tallied for processing. Though there were countless other duties and observance expected of him, the Sigillite followed Rantal's example. He ignored the ache in his old bones and joined the administratum of clerks at their makeshift desks, carefully scribing the names and origins of the thousands of displaced civilians as they stepped forward in turn. And it was then that the three Primarchs came to him at last. This is really a great scene of Malcador. In my previous upload we saw him literally humble arguably the greatest Primarch. And here, we have him pitching in, helping the simple people of the Imperium. Normal, everyday men and women and children like us. It demonstrates the character of Malcador really well, and endears him quite a lot. Can you imagine the current High Lords of the Imperium doing this? I'm afraid to say I can't. They resisted the return of a Primarch himself when Guilliman returned. How far have the ideals of the Imperium have fallen in 10,000 years? As they passed this new triumvirate, men and women fell to their knees all around them. Some wept in fear, some in joy. Some reached out to touch their shining warplate or rich cloaks, only to be pushed back by the legionary escorts that followed. Malcador did not look up from his work. The Praetorian, the Angel, and the Warhawk. Impressive figures you cut, to be sure, but disruptive all the same. You overwhelm these good people with your magnificence, and I'd like to be finished before nightfall. Lord Regent, said Dawn, without humour, this work is not befitting of your station, or your talents, and it places you in unnecessary danger, where not even the custodian guard can adequately protect you from an assassin's blade or needle pistol. I should remind you that I am no longer Regent Rogel, except when it suits your purposes to name me as such, of course. He paused, the cartridge pen falling still in his tired hand, and glanced pointedly at the Khan. But I do not assume I cannot take care of myself, should the need arise. Jagatai did not visibly respond, though Malcador felt a flicker in his soul light, carefully guarded as it was. Malcador with a little sly quip there. Jagatai saw Malcador humble Horus, of course, so he knows the power Malcador possesses. It appears that confrontation hasn't been, passed on between the other brothers. You get the sense here that Dawn and Sanguinius don't know about it. It's a sly comment, and the way he looks to the Khan is that the Khan would understand. The Angel Sanguinius, his blonde hair tied back and his wings carefully folded, placed one hand upon the Sigillite's shoulder. You make a great gesture, you and the rest of the High Lords, in giving over the council chamber to shelter these people. It is symbolic. It is beautiful. You declare that even the highest hall of the palace belongs to them, now and forever. Malcador patted the Primarch's golden gauntlet. Well, we aren't using it, so... Sanguinius laughed at that. Ah, dear uncle, he beamed. You always played the role of curmudgeon so well, when needed, and it warms my heart to see it once more. I have convinced Rogel to assess the structure and the avenue too, to make them as safely defensible as they can be. Quite a touching rapport between the Primarchs and Malcador here. They clearly care about him. Sanguinius calls him uncle as Horus did before, so it appears commonplace between the Primarchs to call Malcador uncle. Obviously, I have no doubt not all of them would feel this way. Can't quite imagine Angron feeling that way, or Kurz, for example. But for the most part, it's safe to say that Malcador is an uncle of sorts to the Primarchs. And that bond works in both ways. I feel he definitely cares for them as an uncle would, and they look to him as an uncle. And how much does a current Imperium need the return of a Sanguinius? Look, we know it's not going to happen, but he's without question one of the top tier warriors of the Primarchs, and he's one of the most human. He hasn't lost that part of him. He's the figurehead that the current Imperium needs, because everybody idolizes Sanguinius, and he would bring that touch that the Imperium needs so much. But let's get back on topic. Though his reluctance was clear, Dawn nodded. Necessity, priority, magnanimity. These things do not always go easily hand in hand, but I will not allow the Council's display to go unsupported. We will make it work. That's all we ever asked, Malcador replied. For men to speak, and their protectors to hear them. You should not only answer your brother's calls, for that is how heresy always begins. He watched the three Primarchs as they walked away, then beckoned to the next civilians in line. Hours later, Upon the high battlement, the Sigillite clearly saw the figure lurking in the gloom ahead and did not alter his shuffling pace. "You only seek me out when you want something, Jagatai," he called. "Some things never change, eh?" The Khan sauntered into the light, with a smile softness to his darting gaze. Malcador halted, the scythe flame of his staff before him. "So, what do you want?" "I wanted to apologise, Lord Sigillite," the Primarch replied. "Also, to warn you." Malcador narrowed his eyes. "Though I know you far better, that could almost sound like a threat, coming from anyone else." The Khan bowed low, bringing him almost down to the Sigillite's own eye level. "Forgive me, for nothing could be further from my intentions. Things have soured between us in the years since you humbled my brother, and I would tell you that I wish to make amends. There can be no secrets now." "Unnecessary," said Malcador, gesturing for him to rise. "Your presence here is all I need, to know that you are one of the most loyal. You remain here to defend the throne, even though it is not in your nature, nor that of your legion." That's a great point by Malcador. The Khan has gone against all of his free-roaming nature to man the walls of terror against the traitors, to defend his father and the homeworld. It's nice to see a glimpse behind the mask of the Khan here as well, wishing to make amends for his part in Horus's confrontation before. I also love the line of the Khan bowing down low and still not being taller than Malcador, and still being taller than Malcador even. It doesn't even reach the same eye level. Malcador is such a powerful character that you forget that he is literally an old man. He's the same size as a normal everyday old man. He's smaller than most of you probably listening to this video. Yet he's the right hand of the Emperor. He's the uncle to Primarchs, and he chastises them like children. Yet physically he's just an old man. I think we forget that quite often when we listen to Malcador. And yet, there is more I can do. Again, I say that I must warn you. Warn me of what? The Khan's eyes glinted with the flickering light of the staff. I know who you are, Lord Sigillite. Who you were. Malcador grew very still. The soft murmur of the night wind was the only sound up there. He felt his ancient power prickling in the back of his mind. What do you mean, Jagatai? What do you think you know? I know because Horus knows. You left your mark upon his pride, as surely as he left his upon the council table, and my brother is nothing if not patient and resourceful in the execution of his vengeances. The Sigillite closed his eyes. He had already seen where this was going. In the libraries on the flagship, the Khan continued, he found you. For a long time, it was his private obsession, and I dare say he has uncovered even more in all the years since. At first I believed he feared the influence you might have over our father and the Imperium, and the creation of the Council of Terror only confirmed his suspicions. Though, of course, when he realised he could no longer simply decry your efforts as unjust and self-interested, he delved deeper into the past you have deliberately hidden. He took a breath. He told me that you are Brahm Malcador, last of the Sigillites, the cursed wanderer, the Perpetual. Horus knows what you have done, the atrocities that you and your secret order heaped upon mankind during Old Night. There are some legends that even you could not erase, some texts that the last and greatest technomage of terror could not burn. Have no doubt, my brother will seek to unmask you before the end. He will reveal to all that the imperial truth was founded on lies from the very beginning, that the galaxy cannot therefore be justly ruled by our father or any who support it. And there we have it. Malcador is a Perpetual, or at least so Horus believed, and obviously informed the Khan as such. Was Malcador a warlord before he joined the Emperor? One of the many warlords vying for power during the Age of Strife, Old Night? before the Emperor rose and defeated them all? Did the Emperor defeat Malcador, perhaps? Or upon seeing the Emperor, did Malcador then side with him? The Sigillites were said to be protectors of all the important artifacts of the human race, so it's interesting to know, but I doubt we'll ever know the true story. They give us these little insights to encourage our imaginations. Will we possibly see Horus trying to unmask and reveal Malcador's history to Terra when he arrives? Possibly, yeah, it looks like it's leading that way. Could we possibly get some kind of, even maybe not in person, but through communication, confrontation between Horus and Malcador? I'd definitely love that. That would be really great to see. Malcador shifted his weight, his pseudo-mortal frailty all but forgotten, as he prepared himself for the possibility of combat. It had been a long time since he had faced Horus, and he did not know if he still had the psychic strength to subdue a Primarch. He opened his eyes, looking the Khan up and down. And is that what you believe, mighty Warhawk of Chagoris? Am I the root of all mankind's ills, as Horus would have the Imperium believe? The Khan gave a slightly exaggerated shrug. It is not for me to say, Lord Sigillite, for I do not read the same books that my brother claims to. But I know my father, and his power, his vision. I cannot believe even one so powerful as you could deceive him. If you were not the honourable man you claim to be, now, and so, if my father knows all of this to be true, and still keeps you at his side, then... He shrugged again. Well, am I not part of the same vision? Perhaps it is my destiny to serve him, regardless or whether or not any of us who believe ourselves to be. Perhaps this is what you tried to show Horus, I think. Malcador relaxed. Something like hope was kindled in his heart, and though such things had become unfamiliar to him, he smiled. That's an interesting point from the Khan as well there. If Malcador was such an evil tyrant, as Horus is clearly saying, why would the Emperor have him at his side? Yes, the Emperor is a warlord, but the Emperor is a warlord for the good of all mankind. He fights for the glory of mankind, against the rest of the galaxy. And as powerful as Malcador is, he couldn't fool the Emperor. So that's an interesting question. If Malcador is such a powerful warlord from the past, then why is he on the Emperor's side? Wouldn't the Emperor have just wiped him out with all the rest of the warlords? Wonder if we'll find out the answer to that one. Just so, he said. Come, walk with me. They continued along the walls, gazing out over the full plains of Himalaya. There, to the south, the bulky spires of the Black Ministry could just be seen on the dark horizon. Beyond the lights of the spaceport at Damocles, the Sigillite paused. Do you remember Sibel Niasta? The two of you spoke a great deal in the beginning, as I recall. The astropath, the Khan replied. She was patient with me, and my sons. Indeed. She had a great many sayings and aphorisms from her youth. I expect one that I always remember was, what they do not know cannot hurt them. Tell me, Jagatai, what do you think of that? The Primarch gave a wry grin. You ask me a leading question, sir. You have always sought to manage the truth. This much I know for certain. Ah, but you assume I agree with the sentiment behind it. I think, if these past years have taught us anything at all, that what we do not know can still wound us most deeply, and to deny that which does you harm only gives it more blades and teeth and fire in its belly. No, I think that particular saying can be safely struck from the collected wisdoms of our times. There is another, though, which I think lands much closer to the mark, and it is this: least said, soonest mended. The Khan nodded. To be aware and yet choose to say nothing, so that others may not be reminded of the truth. This feels more like you, Lord Sigillite. More like my father also. Indeed. Never, never underestimate the damage a poorly crafted lie can inflict, nor also the restorative power of consensual ignorance. The trick is in knowing which truths to bury, which records to burn, and which proclamations to deny. To scream falsehood over anything that would oppose you is the way of the witless demagogue. A little contradiction is healthy. Like a pinch of salt in the gruel, it makes the whole meal a little easier to swallow. Malcador saw the understanding in the Khan's eyes. It is too late to undo what, in our blindness, we have already done, Jagatai. When the ships of the traitor legions blacken the skies of terror, our agreed upon lies shall clash with the agreed upon lies of the enemy. And only then will the truth of the next age become apparent. I am certain that many of us will not live to see it, and yet this thought gives me no fear. None, Lord Sigillite? None, Malcador agreed. Because I have to believe, when all else is done, that should they so wish, even the greatest monsters of our time can yet be redeemed and forgiven. And there we have it. What a line to end on. I think Malcador has two meanings with that little last line there. The obvious one is we have to believe maybe some of the Primarchs can be redeemed, but I don't think that was really what he was implying. The more subtle one, and maybe the true intention, he has to believe that he can be redeemed himself, which goes to further imply that yes, perhaps he was a warlord before, on the wrong side, opposing the Emperor, and he is redeeming himself by siding with the Emperor. Of course, there's a million ways of interpreting this whole conversation. But what did you guys think of it? Are you surprised Malcador is a Perpetual? Does that mean he could possibly one day return? Or does his sacrifice on the Golden Throne mean, there's no coming back from that? I mean, he literally does fall to dust, unless that's going to be retconned soon. I wouldn't be surprised. Black Library has done a few retcons already. I'm expecting a couple more big ones actually going to happen in the Siege of Terror. I hope it's really not a major retcon in the Emperor Horus fight. That's one retcon I really don't want to see. But anyway, interesting times ahead. I really enjoyed this short story. It was great to see Malcador and the High Lords helping the normal people of Terra, showing that they actually do care about the little people. This isn't a PR move. There's no press there unleashing it and to the rest of the galaxy saying, oh, look at all these great efforts the High Lords of Terra are doing it. They're doing it because they actually care about the people. And I think that's something that definitely gets lost over the next 10,000 years. Because at the end of the day, that's what the Imperium is all about. The people of the Imperium. And the conversation with the Primarchs as always was fantastic. I loved his rapport with Sanguinius, and seeing that the Primarchs care about their uncle. Those are the little moments that I really enjoy the most in these Horus Heresy novels. Really hope we get to see more going forward, especially at the climactic Siege of Terror. But then of course we've got the Scouring series afterwards. Definitely want to see more in that, and I really feel that Black Library will be missing such a great opportunity if they don't go back and base more novels during the Great Crusade. But what did you guys think? Leave a comment down below with your thoughts as always, and a big thank you to all of my subscribers for all of your support as always. It really means a lot, and I truly appreciate each and every one who subscribes. If you are new, then consider subscribing to help the channel grow and join this community. It's a great community of Warhammer fans. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then consider dropping a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you guys again real soon.